Right, we're live. And then we're out. Hello and welcome to some Derps Talk About Games. I'm your co-host, Mango.
And I'm your co-host, Buddy.
And today we're going to talk a little bit about the Eternals. But before we do that, I want to tell the folks I don't want to be doing this podcast.
Well, on this podcast, I try really hard not to make this whole podcast about Zack Snyder, even though Chloe Zhao said that she really likes Man of Steel and thinks that it's like a superhero movie made by Terrence Malick, which I can't disagree. I can't disagree more, Chloe. It's like a movie made by all visionary directors. No, I'm just kidding. The Eternals is the most recent Marvel movie directed by Academy Award winner Chloe Zhao, starring a bunch of people that you've seen before. The guy who played Rob Stark, Kit Harington is in here. Kumail Nanjiani is also in here. But it is sort of on its face the story of a secret group of aliens who look like humans who were put on Earth to protect humanity from these big crazy monsters called deviants, and the entire thing is awash in sunsets. There's so many sunsets in this movie. Like every important scene is framed against the sunset. It is awash in sunsets and intricate VFX about their powers because they do these like swirly things. The powers aren't just lasers, they're swirly lasers. And all of the, the interfering drama between these different this different kind of pantheon of gods. It's I don't know what do we say? Where do you want to start?
All right, well, first, so we'll give our opinions pre-spoilers, then we're going to get pretty quickly into the spoilers, I imagine. So,
Okay,
um,
I was about to say it's bad, but I didn't
okay.
know if I wanted to just go with my
Yeah, hey,
opinion
yeah.
right up front.
I agree. I did not think this was a great movie. I thought it was very, I wanted to say more half-baked than anything else. Like, okay, so this is what I want to know. Do you think it's better or worse than Black Widow?
Oh my god. It's gotta be worse,
See,
right?
I think it's better than Black Widow, but I think I might be falling into your kind of like, I admire the ambitions.
Okay,
Um,
you know what? Actually, I think you're right. I think it is better than Black Widow. It bothers me more than Black Widow is really what I'm describing. In the way that, so something I've described in the past, right, is that some people say that Michael Bay is the worst filmmaker or whatever, right? Like the Transformers movies, the worst movies. And I don't think that that's true just because they're at least evocative of emotion, right? They get you to feel something even if it is negative, right? I think the worst movies are completely forgettable movies. Movies that somebody would mention and just be like, "What?" The like, the the movie with, like, some actor, like Jason Statham, Vin Diesel, like, I don't even remember this, right? Like, I think that's the worst kind of a movie. Black Widow is a forgettable movie. The Eternals is like Transformers. It's like a Michael Bay movie.
okay, that's an interesting way to put it. So for my part, like, I did not like while I was watching this movie, I did not think, oh, this fucking cape shit again, which is what I thought. This is that was how I definitely felt about Black Widow. I think it's a tougher call with Shang-Chi. Um, just
Yeah, Shang-Chi, well, hmm. God, now I'm actually sort of thinking that the Eternals is the best of these. For instance, the Eternals like executes real character arcs and does the kind of it has themes, it has real personality. But the stuff that bothers me is tonal stuff, it's pacing stuff. Um,
there's some
it's
weird
some
missteps.
pretty yeah, it's some pretty kind of like plot level problems and just like how the plot itself kind of unfolds or whatever. Shang-Chi has more significant problems, I would say, right? Like the fact that Shang-Chi himself doesn't have a character arc, I think that's a massive problem, right? And I basically pinned that entire movie failing on that point. Um but I don't know if that is a more serious problem than the sum of their parts problems of all these little issues that are all over Eternals that bother me.
Yeah,
I think Shang-Chi is better.
yeah, I think I might be with you on that. Um,
Probably mostly just because the action is better. I did like some of the action in this, but I felt like it wore out its welcome pretty quickly. And that's like, I can get past a lot of stuff. Like I don't think Infinity War is a very good movie, but I think it's a movie that I could watch pretty effortlessly just because the action is good. The Eternals is not a movie that I think the action is good enough that I could just kind of like
Yeah,
effortlessly fall into it on a Saturday afternoon kind of thing.
at least Shang-Chi had some like nice wuxia in it, whereas like
Yeah.
this movie felt very like pre-release. There was a bunch of like there was like some like the haters on Twitter called like the Marvel Defense Force, but they like there's like a clip from the movie of like Angelina Jolie doing a spinny thing with her spear, and being like, "See, she looks badass." And like everybody, including myself, that I saw was like, "No, that looks pretty bad, right?" Like,
It looks pretty bad. I mean, there's some stuff that works really well in here. I think all the stuff with Icarus, right, flying around. I mean, this is all that's all like,
I was gonna say, like,
you
that
know,
looks like it was straight up stolen from Man of Steel.
well, yeah, yeah, I mean, it was, right? But I think that that's true, right? I think Man of Steel captures that essence of sort of like the aerial sort of flybys, and I think that this is bigger than just the Eternals and Man of Steel, even though like, like I said, like Chloe Zhao name dropped Zack Snyder and said that
Mm.
she really likes Man of Steel. Because I think that that is sort of an action blueprint that's been adopted in a bunch of places. It's showed up in Shazam and Aquaman. It's showed up in oh god, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, right? Like I just think that the way that we shoot flying superhero fights has shifted on the fulcrum of Man of Steel, right? But it's more the low to the ground stuff. There's just like some sort of like mid-level dissonance going on with just like, Gilgamesh is going around punching the same guy over and over and he's not really doing anything interesting. It always seems like there's a stop start nature to all of the fighting where the thing looks menacing and then he gets shot by like the good guys or like punched by the good guys and it's like that interaction over and over again rather than anything kind of like more dynamic. Or like escalating in a way, in the way that like Shang-Chi, the bus fight escalates because the bus is getting ripped apart by Razor Fist the entire time, right? So there's kind of this like mounting, like this ramping sort of tension. I definitely didn't get any of that with Eternals, except actually that's not true. At the very, very end, there is like this brief section where all of the Eternals are fighting one another to keep this out of the spoiler section, and that part is really great. That part is really actually probably it's like that stuff and the Icarus stuff that I think is truly good, and everything else is basically awful.
Yep, I think I might agree with that. And to the Icarus point, right? Like when I say it was stolen from Man of Steel, I wasn't talking about the flying stuff, which I do agree with you is here. I'm talking about the eye laser stuff. Like there was a
Oh,
scene
sure.
that I thought was like that I looked at, I was like, that might have like I thought it might have been like shot for shot's probably too aggressive, but like it looked like it was straight out of like it looked like it was this odd moment for a second, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I also think that that's something that has cropped up recently because it's also in the boys. There's something in Man of Steel, the way that the like his whole eye gets brought into the heat vision. It's not just a laser that pops out of his eyes, but like there you can see like the veins and the light is kind of coming out from under his skin. That's also in Icarus, that's also in the boys, that's in a couple of other places. So I also think, that's one of those fulcrum things. Um, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's put up a big old spoiler warning then. We
Okay,
both
yeah, let's put up a big old
not
spoiler
happy
warning.
with this movie or not
Yeah,
impressed by this movie. But
I mean, my recommendation is skip it, to be honest. I think if you're incredibly inclined to keep up to date on all of the minutia of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you are well within your rights to go see this one. But it seems pretty perfunctory, all things considered. I'm sure it will pop in and be more important as time goes on, maybe, and the events here will be referenced in some more meaningful way. But honestly, this is not like Captain America Civil War, right? In Captain America Civil War, like that is a necessary movie to view to understand the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? Um, this does not feel like that. This feels like Doctor Strange or Ant-Man or any of like the most of the introductory movies honestly kind of fall into this category, right? There's just like not a lot in here that I feel like is going to come back in a very major way. I could be wrong about that. There's definitely some stuff I'm sure we'll talk about in the spoiler section, but you know, if you are
I think you can
worried that
get
you're not gonna get the all of the continuity, I'm pretty sure you'll just be fine.
Yeah, I think you can watch like the two post credit scenes online, and you'll probably be good.
Yeah, probably.
All right, yeah. So let's launch into it, and let's maybe start with the thing that Lou brings up in the chat, which is there is a sex scene in this
Groundbreaking.
movie.
There is a sex scene in this
The
movie. It was
Eternals
very
have
weird.
sex.
They bone.
Yeah.
Oh,
I guess we know that Tony Stark bangs because like one, it's implied a lot about his character, and two, he has a kid. Um,
yep.
so does Ant-Man. Yeah, so confirmed though what sexes are
To be
Tony
honest, I
Stark
actually kind of
and
like. Well, I was
Ant-Man.
sort of with the movie. This was right in the beginning. The sex scene happens right in the beginning in
Yeah.
the flashback, and I was sort of on board with what was going on because this is honestly a pitch that I'm down for. Right, the pitch is basically, the Marvel version of the Justice. Not like. I mean, it's a little bit one to one in the sense that there are some characters where like Icarus is pretty clearly Superman. Athena is like
One
close to Wonder Woman,
woman.
right? Like you can kind of see that there are some characters, right? The God, what's his name? Like Kino or something? What the fuck is the Kumail's character's
I
name?
don't know. It's Kumail's
I
character.
I can't fucking remember. Yeah, but he has like the sort of Flash's personality where he's kind of like the comic relief. There is a character with super speed, right, who does like the Flash stuff. But I also just mean like on a thematic level, right? Like the thing that animates the Justice League is the idea of like a modern sort of pantheon of gods, right? This is what Grant Morrison famously said in the 90s where he like reinvented the Justice League around the Core 7, where he said, that the Justice League are not really like they are not humans telling human stories. They are gods telling myths, essentially, right? And I think the Eternals is like the Marvel version of that, right? They created this pantheon of gods, and now we're seeing them like bicker and whatever. And this is the kind of shit that I'm very down for, right? Like this is exactly what animates, like this is also something that shows up in Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, and the Snyder cut of the Justice League, right? Like this level of just sort of gods walking on Earth, and what does that mean, and how do people kind of deal with it? And there's a lot of thematic stuff going on, even right from the very beginning, right, where they're talking about what is their duty to, serve or protect, or how do they interact with community, how do they or humanity, how do they protect humanity? All of those questions are up for down, and I'm all on board with all of this. In the middle of it, there's this one fucking sex scene, which I also think has a shot for shot thing of Man of Steel, by the way, where you see Icarus is like ripped back and she like grips it, because that's something that happens in Batman vs Superman. And I was just like, this is kind of hilarious. But okay. But over time, just the movie lost me for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, I'm
Mostly the flashbacks interrupted the drama at every turn. And it was
not only
like,
that, but the first one doesn't tell you that it's happening until like
yeah, and
30 seconds.
I was just like, "What?
Yeah.
Are you kidding?" Like, this is I mean, and, I don't know. There are some places where I don't think that matters that much. Man of Steel and Batman Begins both have this structure of unannounced flashbacks, right? Where you just see Clark or Bruce as a kid, and you on the audience just have to get it, right? You just understand. Oh, I'm seeing a flashback. You'll even see Christian Bale, and you'll have to intuit. Oh, I'm seeing a flashback, and the movie does the work to let you understand
Yeah.
where in the narrative that this is, like that this is playing out, right? Eternals does not do that work. It cuts to the flashback and then has 5 minutes of a fight scene, and after the fight scene is over, it's like Babylon,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
500 BC.
And part of this is not helped by the fact that they are Eternals, right? And so like they all appear the same age at
Yep,
all times, right? So it's not like you even get like little hints of it or whatever, right? You just get the you know, they're apparently in Babylon, right? Like, and like you
yep,
pick up on it, but it's very jarring the first time. The first time especially. After that, it's like the tenor set. Um, Even moving back a half step from there, from that moment, just kind of like to go back to the Cersei and Icarus's relationship. I just found that the very opening scene where like they're looking out over the earth and she's like, it's beautiful, and he's like, I'm Icarus, and that's like the first line, right? Like it's just like I just like, oh, okay, right? Like I think a lot of this movie suffers from not having enough time to play out
Mhm.
which is saying something given that it was like what 2 hours and 40 fucking
It was
minutes long.
2.5 hours. I went so full disclosure, I went to go see Dune with some friends. The Dune showing was at 6:15, so of course we got out of the theater at like 9, right? And then we drove back to our house, which is like half hour away, and I went to the 10:30 showing of Eternals, which ended at 1:30 in the morning. And I was just like, Jesus fucking Christ, this sucks. Like,
No, I like I was so I went to like a noon 30 or 12:30 showing
mm,
of Eternals. Like I don't want to waste my whole day on this, right? And I don't want to spend more money on like the IMAX or not the IMAX, the like the Regal premiere. Or they've got like a nice theater right where I am.
yeah, sure.
They're all nice, but like this one's like the special one with a nice sound system or whatever. I was like, I don't want to spend money on. And like as I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, so how long am I in this for? It's like 2 hours and 40 minutes. And then I don't know about the theater you go to, but it's at least like 20 minutes of fucking
Oh my god. Can we just talk for a second about how trailers have taken over movies? Showed so a couple weeks ago we did a podcast on something. It wasn't Dune, it was something else where I'd forgotten about it until the literal last second. It was 10:30 at night on Sunday and I was like, "Holy fuck, I have to see this before we do the podcast tomorrow." And I found a 10:45 showing like 15 miles away and I was like, "Well, I might miss the first bit of it or whatever." And I'm like racing across Los Angeles at 11 o'clock at night. And I pull in and it's like 11:15 when I sit down and the trailers have just finished. And I was like, holy fucking shit. 30 minutes of trailers predating like, before this movie starts. That is insane.
yeah. No, I mean if we wanted to do a little bit of trailer talk, I was actually kind of confused because they played the latest Sing 2 trailer in front of it, because that trailer's been playing in front of fucking everything. But this latest one, like, looks like it spoils everything in the movie, right? It's like all like the end scenes of the movie. It's like a
Yeah, well,
supercut.
yeah. Because the first trailer for Sing is like, oh, are we gonna get the lion to come back? Is this right for Sing 2?
Yeah. Like the Lion
Yeah, and
King.
then in the second trailer, you watch the lion walk onto the big stage.
Yeah, I mean, and so like I think this, if I remember, if I have my trailer order right, like at least like the first or like the second one, like the early one, it's like hinted at, but it's like it's not quite there. Whereas this latest one is literally like the porcupine singing on the stage while like it's like literally like the moment in the movie, right? It's like she's singing and then like the lion decides to do the thing, right? It's like how like dude, I guess it doesn't matter anymore. I guess we all knew how it was gonna happen anyway.
I mean, I learned a lot about Clifford the Big Red Dog. Did you know that the reason Clifford is so big is because his size is dictated by the amount of love that like his owner has for him? I didn't know that lore about I just thought he was a big ass dog, dude. Like
Yeah, I mean,
nobody ever
and,
explained the origins of
and
Clifford to me.
that's why if your dog is small, it's because you don't love them enough.
Yeah, because you don't fucking love Yeah, not to mention that Clifford the Big Red Dog seems to have like the same plot points as like The Fugitive. Oh, anyway, that's true. Sorry, this movie is fucking long. Oh. Because it's got 30 minutes of trailers and then 2.5 hours of fucking movie.
Yeah,
And I appreciate that the movie does take its time with certain things. There's moments in here that work only because it is not rushed, right?
yeah, I would agree
One
with
thing
that.
I will say is that the thing I kept comparing it to in my head is Justice League, but like the Whedon cut of Justice League, the theatrical cut of Justice League. And the theatrical cut of Justice League is obviously bad, and it's bad for the same reason, like we'll talk about this more, I'm sure, but like it is tonally bad because you have stuff in here that is, so extremely self-serious, right? These people are taking their drama, the situation, the world, their characters super serious, and then every once in a while there's just like a joke, and it is, and the, you know, if you think that Bathos humor is bad in like whatever the worst examples you can think of,
I mean, the
I
classic
almost guarantee
example
you it is.
is Thor Ragnarok, where Hulk slammed himself into the bridge, right? Like that's like the
Yeah, and
example
it's
we get.
just like, yeah, and it's like it's so much worse in this just because not only is it Bathos, it is Bathos in the face of like such serious filmmaking and storytelling, right? Like, it's oh man, it like completely destroyed me in
Yeah,
this movie. There's
I
the
agree.
first fight scene, which happens pretty quickly. It had a little bit of it, but I was sort of willing to forgive it because most of it came from Kit Harington's character. It didn't come from the Eternals themselves. And it's like, okay, well, he's kind of a goofy guy. They have a little bit of this banter going. I guess maybe this is okay. And then it just gets so bad and so much worse, right? As they start introducing characters and picking up these weird comic relief guys. And it's just like, man, I cannot fucking get into this movie on any level just because of that, like that tonal dissonance. But the one thing that the Eternals does have over the Whedon cut of Justice League is that it does not have the clipped nature of it, right? In the past I've called this narrative arthritis where, there's just like not enough time between scenes to really kind of like soak them in or have it feel like there is an appropriate amount of time passing. With Justice League, you could just tell that they were at this insane clip to get, just get through the whole thing or whatever. Eternals does take its time, which is to its credit. However, it takes its time and it constantly interrupts the narrative with these huge flashbacks that I honestly am like mostly like, what is this even trying to communicate most of the time? It's like 15 minutes of context for like one pretty simple point that I'm just sort of like, I don't really feel like this deserved that runtime and that interrupting nature, I guess. Um,
I would agree, right?
so yeah.
Like, I guess you kind of needed part of it to for the like the conquistador scene, right? Just kind of like that's like that like actually has some narrative weight, but I think it's a little bit too long. Also, this I think rolls into one of my like I think Druig is a bad character and is played by a bad actor. Like I thought that like that he like
Okay.
do you disagree?
I didn't have thought. He's honestly so minor. I wasn't even thinking about it.
There's so much in the middle that's like about him, right? Like it's about like he's got these mind control powers and he can do these things, but his delivery on every line is so fucking wooden that I couldn't, that like I didn't understand like what was happening with
Okay.
him.
I think I buy that. I also think I do have problems with Druig on a character level, right? For instance, he seems to be the only one who's like ethically concerned about humanity, but he solves that problem by mind controlling them, which I was like, that seems deeply unethical. If, if the mouthpiece of the point of view that actually we shouldn't just let humans run rampant, and we should try and stop bad things from happening to them. Like having the answer to that call being I'm just gonna mind control all of them seemed incredibly strange to me. Because like even if I guess I think the movie is saying that he is doing the right thing by like preventing them from killing each other, right? It's so coded a trope that I
Yeah,
couldn't help but look at it and be like, this seems deeply evil and awful. And the movie does kind of call him on it because at one point in the middle of the fight, somebody goes, this is wrong and you should stop. And he does. But it's also just like an incredibly rushed thing that it's like, what
yeah, it doesn't
is the
sell it
point of
right.
this? Yeah, it's like, is this because I think it's Icarus, right? Like, is this Icarus or is it maybe Cersei? One of them just like tells him, like, you should stop, right? And I was like, is the point of this that they are making an argument that he should stop this behavior in the future, or he should stop this behavior as a fighting tactic in the middle of the fist fight they're having with the deviants, right? Because what happens immediately afterward is he releases them from their mind control and he tells them to run, right? Which seems as though the preceding line about you should release them is about telling them to get to safety and not using them as pawns in the fight against the deviants. Do you see what I'm saying? It's
Yeah,
like, is that morally wrong or is it tactically wrong?
not only that, but like it's not helped by the fact that it like frankly I thought it was like in terms of like use of a power, the like he doesn't have any direct combat abilities, so he like basically has a regimen of like coordinated gunfire, right? Like which
Yeah.
like that's like a neat idea, right? Like
Mhm.
um but like you said, it's kind of ethically gross, And the answer is let them go in the middle of the fight and tell them to run away, right? Like,
Yep,
which is
yep,
like,
yep.
it's like, no, you should probably hold on to them and make sure they don't get hurt and then deal with it afterwards, right? Like this is, it's, there's a bunch of stuff. Like, I think part of the problem is like the real conflict is of course about is Arishem supposed to be Galactus? Is that or like is that like a different thing? I don't know.
Galactus is a celestial, I'm pretty sure. And so Arishem and Galactus are siblings in
Okay.
a way. Um, Arishem, I'm pretty sure this is a side of comics I have very, very little context for, just like
Okay.
fair warning. I actually think in the comics, if I remember correctly, Druig is the bad guy among the Eternals most of the time. Um, and that Arishem is kind of unquestionably good. But like I said, I only have very fleeting, a
Okay.
very fleeting interaction with this stuff. But yeah, so my understanding is that Arishem and Galactus are sibling celestial beings. Like Ego is also Ego the Living Planet, I'm pretty sure, is also related to all of this. There's a couple of other, um kind of like celestials in this pantheon. And the thing, by the way, about Tiamat, about there being a celestial in the planet Earth, is also kind of Marvel lore, from a series called Earth X, which basically posits that there is a baby celestial. It's kind of like Azeroth in like WoW lore, right? Like, because there is a baby Titan in the planet is special. Because Earth has a baby celestial in it, that's the reason. That's like the ultimate reason that superheroes exist, right? Like, the celestial kind of winds the like
This is
reality and
why Earth
fate.
has such a high level of
Yeah,
superheroes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
it's the thing that makes, Peter Parker gets bit by the spider, just because like that kind of stuff happens on Earth because of the celestial. It needs superheroes to
Okay.
protect it, essentially.
This sounds like, and this I was gonna say this at some point too, is like this movie starts to verge on the, and whenever a world goes on long enough, it's stupid. It gets stupid, right?
Well,
Like,
so the interesting thing is killing the celestial, which they do, and Arishem being bad. Like that, all of that stuff I thought was crazy. I wasn't surprised that there was a baby celestial, but all of the stuff about the emergence being bad and destroying the world. I don't actually know if the celestial that is in the Marvel Earth has ever been interacted with in a more complex way than that. The answer might be yes. Like I said, I just don't know the depths of this corner of Marvel lore that well. But my understanding is just sort of always been that, it's a baby celestial, it's sleeping for however long. It's not a threat or dangerous. It is a good thing. It's really a lot like Azeroth, I guess, is that it's just
yeah.
it is a good benevolent spirit inside of the world, making the planet special, and that needs protecting by, superheroes, essentially. So you know,
Yeah.
I guess the all of I like the drama in an abstract way, and I don't like it in a particular way. With Arishem and the way it all plays out. Like, so for instance, I think that Icarus is I really like Icarus, and I was on board with most of it, but I don't like that he kills Ajax. I think that that is gross, and that kind of broke his character for me on like a suspension of disbelief level, because what Icarus represents is that kind of like the paragon, sort of self-righteous mindset, right? That he believes so fervently in this cause, that he is willing to and he is just like
He's a
unwilling to be
zealot.
compromising.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And this, by the way, is a very common way to make Captain America or Superman a bad guy, right? Like, Superman in the Injustice universe is the exact same version of this. It is just because in the Injustice universe, Superman has suffered such a tragedy that his personal set of morals has warped to the point where he is okay murdering people and becoming a tyrant, right? Like, when you have a person of that much conviction, the danger there is that they are uncompromising. And so I think that the fundamentals of that when it comes to Icarus is fine. But I really don't see, like, the murder was so off. It was so
N-
far afield of that I
not
just found it
not only that, but
almost
like
unbelievable.
I agree with you, and I think part of that too is that like the way I think that you typically play that type of thing is like he doesn't he doesn't like you don't have the character hide it, right? Like you have the
Mhm.
character be like, I had to kill Ajax because she went against the purpose, right? Like,
Yeah.
um, and you don't have him like apparently execute a long running
Yeah,
you
legitimately thought it was just good on its face. I was on board with it the moment, like when they were having the argument, and you could tell that there were some lines, and Icarus was like, "We should, we need to do our duty for Arishem." I was on board with that. I was like, "Oh shit, maybe this is the conflict. Maybe they're gonna have to fight Icarus. Maybe they're gonna have to like convince him to get back on side or something like that." And then the flashback happens, and I was like, "Wow, that is so much further than they had to go." Because like it is a defensible argument that Icarus can make to say, no, we're above this. Erisham is whatever. I don't believe whatever. You can even have it that, maybe there is something a little bit shady in there where like Icarus discovers Ajax first or something. Like, I don't know. I don't want to rewrite this whole movie. I
yeah.
just don't think that it had to go as far as it did. And it definitely didn't have to go to the point where you fucking commit suicide. Like, what?
By flying into the
I
sun, right?
by
Like,
flying into the sun. Icarus flies too close to the sun, Mango. Do you get it? Like,
yeah, right. Like, also a very weird thing considering that like they appear to be normally injurable otherwise, right?
mhm,
Like, it's like, oh, I guess he can fly into space to make this poetic point. I don't know.
yeah.
I feel like there's a bunch like the whole end of this movie is kind of a mess, right? Like Kumail Nanjiani's character kind of like also is like, I don't want to do this. He disappears. We don't see him. Like even the traders turn around and join in the final joining, except for Kumail Nanjiani, who appears again, like at the very end of the movie, just be like, "Yeah, we all did our thing. We all followed our heart,
Yeah.
right?" Like, but
Yeah, I
apparently,
mean, I like the plot point of they have to fight, like Icarus and Sprite. I think that that's cool and that's neat and that's interesting. But I just really wish it was a lower stakes version of that. I think that you get there with he is dogmatic and he has a couple of guys on his side and part of this leadership, and he has just the inherent nature of the Superman archetype being something that's aspirational, where of course, like there's the part where Kumail's character says, I'd follow you anywhere or whatever, right? Like he is naturally deferential to Icarus's leadership, but Icarus isn't the one that was chosen by Ajax. You clearly have the seeds of a real conflict here that are just fine on their own. And you can see a version of it that almost plays out a little bit like Civil War, right? Where it's like two sides who have like a real disagreement with each other, but then Icarus has to realize that actually Cersei is, Ajax, whatever, and he has to sort of get over himself a little bit and kind of evolve in his thinking or whatever. I think that would be perfectly natural, perfectly reasonable. They all join together in the Unimind. Boom, there's your climax, right? Just like the part where it just seems so insanely brutal. And it also seemed like Marvel was kind of, I talk about the Marvel plot twist a lot, right? That one of the magical things that they do in their movies is they include these plot twists that make that kind of make the core premise of that flip the core premise of the movie on their head, right? So, for instance, in Civil War, it's that the Winter Soldier killed Tony's parents while he was, mind controlled or whatever. Oh, excuse me. And in other movies, it's been stuff similar, but like like more kind of minor than all of that, right? So for instance, in Loki, or not in Loki, in Thor 2, it's like Loki it's like Loki dying, but not dying
right,
or whatever, right? Just like these little things that are kept secret from the audience and then played out for kind of like a big cool reveal kind of in the back half of the second act. It's very common. Almost all the Marvel movies have something along something along these lines. Um this is their version of that, and it's just unnecessary, and it kind of ruins. I think it is the seed that ruins the back half of the movie. It all kind of spirals out from there.
yeah. I mean, it also like it kind of doesn't like come together right either, right? Like, it's like you know, like the way like again, like also to not rewrite the entire movie, but like part of what you expect, say, Icarus's character arc to be is him to recognize that Ajax chose Cersei because she's the wise, she's wiser, and he needs to come to accept that even though he is the most powerful, he is not the one that's fit to lead in this case. Um, but like the reveal that he kills her is like, of course Ajax chose Cersei because Icarus killed her, right? Like
Yeah.
like that's not like a like a point that, like, and then like Kumail's objection makes sense, but like I was expecting him to come in at some point and like I was expecting him to do the thing that Druid does in like, knocking out sprays, be like, I disagree with you, but like we can't, like, or at least like have him be present for the fucking fight, right? Like,
Yeah. Or at least have him switch you know, like maybe you have a thing where it is Icarus and Icarus convinces 4 of the 8 to come on side, right? Maybe he gets Sprite, he gets Druid, and he gets, whatever, Fastos or whatever, right? But over the course of the fight, he starts bleeding his support, right? And eventually it gets to the point where it is 7-on-1. Everyone has turned on him, and it is now everyone fights Superman, and you beat him up, you lock him down with Festus's cool rings or whatever, and that's the moment when he finally kind of accepts, okay, you're right. I, you know, my pride got the better of me or whatever, and I see now that Ajax saw that Cersei was the most connected to humanity, and so she wanted us to save humanity, whatever. Okay, cool. Right now he's on side. You have them all united. Boom, unimind, world saved. Right. I just think that I don't know. Maybe they can only get this guy for one movie.
yeah.
I will say that one thing I do appreciate quite a lot about Eternals is that it does not pull its punches. A bunch of people die in this movie, right? Achak obviously I don't think quite counts, but Gilgamesh dying, I was like, oh fuck, dude, they legit killed this guy. That's kind of new. Marvel typically doesn't do that, right? And also at the end, Icarus dies, so that's nice. I will give some credit where it's due that we are not dealing with normal kids glove. Oh, Brody gets shot out of the fucking sky, but he just walks or while he walks it off, right? Like, you know.
I do like that as a pull quote. Icarus dies. That's nice. Like,
I
um,
actually don't. I don't even want Icarus to die. I want Icarus to stick around because I think he's interesting. I think he's probably the most comprehensive. He's one of the best characters I think Marvel has sort of just introduced in any of these like bigger movies. Um, Like I think he's probably a more interesting character than anybody in Shang-Chi, anybody in Black Widow, right? Anybody in
I
Captain
don't I don't
Marvel, right? Like he's got a lot going on.
I don't think he's more interesting than Dad Shang-Chi, but Dad Shang-Chi's dead.
Mm,
So um yeah, they kill all
okay,
the
maybe, yeah.
they kill the interesting characters, right?
They kill the interesting characters, yeah.
Speaking of which, like I thought the fucking Deviant, like Prime Deviant or whatever his name was like such a wasted fucking opportunity. It's like,
Also,
it's like so quick. It's like, I've been, my people have been tortured by you forever, and so then he walks out of the ocean and dies 5 minutes later, right? Like, what the fuck? What
yeah, I mean, I
like,
thought the whole thing with Angelina Jolie's character was superfluous and kind of perfunctory. I did not think any of that needed to be in the film, and you could have just had this one character who just was uh like a competent individual. I don't know. There's something about like the band of misfits character like archetype, right? Where everybody has their damage or whatever, and I guess it's cool that your crazy warrior also has this like PTSD maybe is what it is that is like preventing her from getting in the fight, right? But at a certain point, you just can't support a character arc for everybody. And some characters are just supporting characters who are the way they are and they are static throughout the movie. And they're mostly there just to have a little bit of personality and contrast on the team, right? I actually think the speedster is a good example of this, who doesn't show up for half the movie, right? But I think she's great. She's there, she fights Icarus. She does the best job fighting Icarus until
right?
like Fastos uses his auto win button basically, right? I I just wish that the stuff with Thena and Gilgamesh or whatever, like you can still have Gilgamesh die, you can still have them in a relationship or whatever, but just like this whole thing with her like eyes going white and I don't know, I hated all that.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was an interesting thing to do. I just thought it wasn't supported by the movie, right? Like maybe this would have been better if to bring up another Dune comparison, if like that thing, right? Like the Deviant and Athena's damage were like movie one, and then Kid was movie, like Celestial
Or
Kid
the
was
Deviant rolls over into a movie too in like the
yeah,
post credits or whatever. I also like the Deviant and I also think that he is cool. And I wish that, he stuck around. It stuck around. I don't even know if it has that, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Um, And I was sort of hoping that it would get some more. It's like the Amazo archetype. I love that character archetype, like the guy who can steal other people's powers. Um, and I just sort of wish that it was. I just sort of wish that it was more important and not sort of this side characters thing that
Yeah,
they go and they fight in a dark cave by themselves while all of the rest of the important drama is unfolding.
yeah. I mean, yeah. It's I don't know. Like it's because they're like the fake out villain, right? Like they're not the real villain, right? But like
Yeah.
but they also tried to make them a real villain with this like power stealy thing. Um, yeah,
It's like if the Mandarin in Iron Man 3 had actually been the Mandarin, but
yeah,
also the other guy was also the man. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
like if you're gonna do the fake out villain, just get rid of him really quickly. That's what happens in all these other ones. Um, you just kind of shuffle the fake out villain off screen while you deal with the real guy.
and they could get a
And once
cameo
it
in a later
became
movie.
clear, yeah, right. But they do the same thing kind of twice, also, which I didn't like. I think it's cool if the Eternals have to fight Athena when she's in this crazy blood rage thing that she's got going on. That's sweet. It's a little less sweet when they're also doing that with Icarus, right? Like if you're gonna have the team fights one another as a plot point, do it once, not twice. I kind of feel.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of this too is that like the like Icarus's betrayal is like held off way too long
Hmm.
in the movie, so like you can't because it's there. You need the stakes of the deviant fight. And ideally, maybe you like move that back a little bit. Again, not rewriting the movie. I'll stop doing it. But like, I don't know. I also thought that like Sprite betraying the team because she wants to fuck Icarus, but is like a child was like a weird plot point. Like a very fucking weird plot point.
That is a weird plot point, but it's also, I'm if I remember correctly, accurate to the comics. I think that that is a thing in the comics with the character Sprite. Is
Yeah,
that
Hank
like
Pym
that's their
beats his
core
wife in
thing.
the comics too. You don't need to bring it back, right? Like,
That's true. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's one of those things where it's just like they were trying to be true to whatever. I thought that she was double crossing, right? Like, you have this illusionist or whatever,
right.
and I was just like, oh, she's gonna do this thing. She's gonna go off with Icarus. Icarus is gonna be doing whatever. She's gonna fuck with him, right? Because she's actually still on Cersei's side, and she's duping, right? She's duping Icarus because he would, effortlessly believe her or whatever. Nope. Nope. That's just dead straight. She actually just wants to fuck Icarus and is willing to betray her best friend of the last however many years, Cersei, to do it.
Yeah,
Like,
right. And this is it's such like a weird scene too, right? Because like the like Camille like ferrets it out of her, which is like okay. Like I actually thought that Peter Pan point was pretty good. I thought it was really undercut by like the Bathos part, right? Like to bring it back to that, right? Like I liked Valet Man. I thought he was like an okay sidekick too.
I
Okay,
hated him so much. He was like he was when I started hating the movie. His introduction, and as every 10 seconds there's just like some inane comment. Every fight scene, Kumail has his moment where he shoots the guy and then he's like, "Did you get that on camera?" I just want
okay.
to I
I
hated
I,
that. I
I
hated it so
I
much.
think that's fair. I think him. I think like as a character, like I guess half of his character is like getting shots, but like like as like the representative of humanity on the team, right? I thought he was not terrible,
Okay.
but to bring it back to the point, right?
Okay, yeah.
Like Icarus runs away, Sprite follows him, and like Camille's like, yeah, it's because she wants to fuck him. Also, I want to leave for much more noble reasons. Bye, right? Like it's like and like that like oh I also think that Camille's like about face like it's a little too quick, right? Like, cause he's like pointing like finger gunning down Icarus. He's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Also, but I actually agree with him. So but I'm not gonna fight you." So I'm like, I don't know. I think Camille's character is way off base in this. Like, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think I agree with that. I feel like he was I don't know. It was
He was
very
also
weird that he wasn't there in the end. It was awful that he was so that all this shit he did seemed to just be for the jokes.
Yeah.
and the jokes were bad is the other part of it. Like sometimes the Bathos will work for me just because I find the jokes legitimately funny, or in character, right? So for instance, this is my defense of them in The Last Jedi, where they do feel like part of the world, and it is less like, you know, it is less like breaking it out of the I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. It just feels like there are certain jokes that are undercutting the drama, but they are still part of the world, and there are jokes that are undercutting the drama and also breaking you out of the world itself, right? It just feels like no one would say this except in a fucking Marvel movie where they constantly make stupid jokes like this. Like
Right.
that was kind of my thing with his character and the valet.
Yeah, I think also just kind of like on a superhero composition point, right? Like what was it, like Band of Five is like the typical thing or whatever,
Yep.
and like and then,
Mhm.
I don't know if I've got the number, but like I think the part of the problem is like you've got Punch Man and Shoot Guy, and then Icarus, who is better than both of them and also can fly, right?
Yep.
Like it's just like, and then like also
Yeah, I
like
mean, the five-man band is really just it's so good, right? The five-man band is, you have the leader, you have the Lancer, right, like Luke Skywalker, Han Solo,
the
you have the big guy, Chewie, you have the girl, Princess Leia,
yeah
and
or the
then you have,
support who's generally the girl,
yeah, and then you have, the smart guy, the nerd, who is
right?
like, I guess C-3PO if I'm going by Star Wars. Maybe Star Wars isn't a great example of the five-man
Yeah,
band, but
because
typically that's the
well,
five-man band, right?
I think the smart guy is both C-3PO and R2D2, right? Like they're like they're a pair, like they are one
Okay.
character
Yeah.
essentially, even though
Mhm.
they're two.
And then you have also like right, like you obviously have sort of like these perfunctory secondary characters, right? Like the mentor to the leader, Obi-Wan, right? Like other character archetypes exist and kind of orbit around the five-man band. But the reason the five-man band is so good is because that just creates like strong dynamics, right? You have the leader and the rival who are foils and constantly bouncing off of each other. Most of the time, the Lancer is everyone's favorite character, even if he is the less interesting on a something I've talked about before is like the ruining of Jack Sparrow by making him the main character of the Pirates franchise, right? The reason that you have a character like Will Turner, who's the Orlando Bloom character in the Pirates movies, is because he can just take the sort of expected narrative weight of having a character arc and being a good guy, like generally having some kind of upstanding motives or whatever. And the Lancer is the guy who gets to do the cool shit, right? Because he's not weighed down by that baggage, right? But then as soon as you make him the main character, now all of a sudden he does have to carry a character arc, right? He does have to have a romantic
Well,
love interest, right? He has to kind of fulfill some of these expected things in order to give the story its structure, and the whole thing kind of falls apart. I think the opposite is kind of happening in the Eternals, where the team is so big that there's just kind of too much going on at any one time, and no one is like the team itself doesn't really coalesce, and also the art the relationships are too complex to really kind of like adequately follow, right? Because you have Kumail's relationship with Icarus, you have Icarus's relationship with Ajax, who's fucking dead, who's in the back, you know what I mean? You have Icarus's relationship with Cersei, which is also important, and then Cersei has a relationship with all of these individual people, right? And I just think keeping track of that whole web is very complicated and tough to get right.
yeah, I mean, so part of it is that like the hero, like the leader in the five-man band generally has a power arc, right? Like
Mhm.
Luke goes from being like a farm boy to a Jedi, right? Whereas the Lancer typically has a like a what I'm going to call a moral arc, right? He goes from being like a badass to a badass who isn't a fucking greedy prick, right? Like
Yeah.
or like less of one at least, right? Whereas like the problem here is like Cersei's power arc doesn't feel like it's like her discovering like an inner power. Like it's like kind of tried to be framed that way, but it's like not clearly like a it's because I believe in myself type thing. It's because like it's an external mechanism to drive that, even though it is an aspect of like, I need to accept my
Yeah.
leadership type stuff.
Yeah, I mean, normally that's part of the character arc. Normally,
Yeah.
that is part of the it is a metaphor, right? So, for instance, the power arc metaphor for uh I don't know what's a good example of this. Oh, Aquaman is actually a good example of this. The power arc metaphor for Aquaman kind of realizing himself and getting those he gets the big trident and he gets the special suit of armor, right? Is him accepting the responsibility of king when he doesn't want to, right? That's his character arc. It is about he starts in this place where he doesn't want to be king, he doesn't want that responsibility, but he realizes that he is the right person for the job, that there are millions of lives on his line, right? And by accepting that responsibility, he now has the power to command the kaiju to go beat up his brother or whatever, right? Whereas before, and what typically happens is before he gets whipped, right? Aquaman straight up loses to Orm in their duel in the beginning, but then he gets a power up. At the end, they duel again. Aquaman wins because he's gone through a character arc. He's overcome his flaws. He's a better guy now. He's more powerful. And like that's the thing playing out. That none of that stuff happens with Cersei. Cersei actually don't even think has a character arc. She's kind of fundamentally the same over
Right.
on a
It's not that she doesn't want leadership. It's that like no one really wants to like recognize her as the leader,
yeah.
right? Like
And
everybody's
I actually think that's okay. I don't think every character has to have a character arc, right?
sure.
There are plenty of examples of, you know, movies or film or whatever where there is a character who is just rock solid the entire way through as the main guy, right? But they are supported by other guys who, like who do have the character arc. So for instance, in Seven Samurai, Kanbei is Kanbei all the way through. And he's, basically the protagonist and the leader of that group, right? He doesn't change over the course of Seven Samurai. He doesn't have an arc at all. But the arc is on, the other characters. It's on Katsushiro, right? Like realizing himself and becoming a true samurai. It's on oh god, how am I forgetting? Kikucho, right? On accepting that he's not actually a samurai, that he's a pretender and he's a farmer, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't care, right? Like other characters have the arc, and that's totally fine. And other characters definitely have the arc in Eternals, but I'm sorry, not Chloe Zhao, but Cersei has the power arc without the character arc like underlining it. Does that make sense?
It does, and you touched on something which is I think Cersei might be a self-insert.
I mean, I don't want to psychoanalyze that much. I don't know very
Yeah,
much about Chloe Zhao
yeah,
compared to
no,
most other directors that I obsess over, right? But maybe.
yeah. But like just for like to wind it back to the band stuff, right? Like there's like four characters maybe competing for the Lancer, none of them really like there's like two of them drop out, right? Like or Icarus is a bad turn, like does a heel turn, and
Yep.
Kumail like
Gilgamesh.
literally exits stage left.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Gilgamesh
Well,
dies. 'Cause
Gilgamesh
oh, I
dies,
guess he's
right?
the big. Well, he's kind of the big guy, right?
Yeah, he's the big guy. Like him and Thena are both kind of both the big guy, right? Like,
Mhm.
um, Ajax actually slides in pretty well as the mentor who dies figure, right? But like,
Yep.
um,
Obviously, Fastos is the tech guy. That makes plenty of sense.
yeah, well, like the
Um,
smart guy is like Faustus and Druig, right? Because like Druig's like
yeah, I guess that's true.
it's weird because like maybe this is the wrong framework to be analyzing it under, but like it feels like
Mhm.
things want to slot into these slots, but like just kind of like don't, right? If that makes sense. Um,
Yeah.
uh,
I also think that it leaves certain characters kind of out to dry. As much as I was praising whoever the fuck is the speedster, right? Because I think she just kind of comes in and does her job and is sort of like
yeah.
whatever. She also doesn't really interact with anybody. She doesn't seem to have any relationships.
Well, she's got like a romance with
Like I
Druig, which is like
she's got yeah, but like it's not developed at all, right?
right.
And even Thena and Gilgamesh also don't really have any relationships. They have a relationship with each other, but they don't really have a relationship with the rest of the group. Outside of maybe one line where Thena says that she wants to see if she could beat Icarus, right? If like the two of them, and I think that's kind of something, right? In like the Wonder Woman, Superman who's stronger sort of sense, right? Um, but it's just sort of like compared to the bigger web, which is you know Icarus, Kumail's character, Fastos is Cersei is in there, Sprite is in there. All of those characters seem really kind of connected with one another and connected to the drama, whereas Druig. Well, Druig is connected to that drama, but the speedster is out of that drama, and Gilgamesh and Thena are both out of that drama, which is a little bit, off-putting.
Yeah. No, I mean it's got a weird structure. It doesn't come together super well.
Yep.
Also, and this is a solid, but it's kind of nitpicky. But I think it's going to be less nitpicky as like time goes on with these movies. There's a point at which I don't believe that a world-ending event doesn't draw in other superheroes anymore, right? Like this is happening in the back of my head. There's like a where is where is the Falcon? Where is like any of the
Black
surviving
Panther,
yeah
whereas yeah.
any of the surviving superheroes, right? Like any of them, right? Like Shang-Chi happens like through a portal, right? Like presumably like the Doctor Strange stuff happens like in a different dimension. This is happening on Earth, and there's a big world-ending event, and no one is showing up. Like strains my believability, right? Like, and I don't think they've got that many. Like they don't have a lot of effort left for, or like they don't have a lot of narrative excuses left for that. Without doing something kind of explicit, right? Like, oh, the Eternals happened in a different universe. I'd buy that, right? But like, explicitly doesn't. Explicitly happens in the main universe, right? Venom's happening in a different universe, or like the stakes aren't that big. But this is a combination of the stakes are too big and it's happening on Earth, right? Like on Earth Prime, which is the wrong. That's like a DC thing, right? Prime.
Yeah, it's a DC thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Earth 6. It's happening on
Earth 616 is technically, or
right,
well,
but
that's
like
technically the comic book
right.
universe.
I'm
Yeah.
sure. I'm sure the film universe has its own, but like it's
Like
happening on the
1578 or something.
yeah, it's happening on the primary MCU Earth, right? Like, and it is a world-ending conflict. I expect superheroes to show up. Like, it doesn't make sense that superheroes aren't showing up. It's visibly happening, right? Like it's
Yeah.
it's not like a like theoretically the Black Widow thing, right? Like it's a world-ending thing potentially, or like the stakes are
But it's
about
also like, yeah, but it's also like very invisible, right?
yeah,
It's this invisible Russian helicarrier in the sky that she's invading or whatever, right? That seems like she's very intentionally off the grid. This is between Civil War and the Avengers stuff or whatever.
right,
That seems like it could legitimately have happened and other people wouldn't have like known or been involved because it was this clandestine, spy shit, right? Or even like Shang-Chi, right? Like so much of the climax of that movie happens in this alternate, you know, dimension of sorts.
right.
Um and it's like, yeah, I understand why fucking Iron Man does not fly to the seal to contain the big monster or whatever, because that's just like not his jurisdiction, apparently, right? But this is all stuff that is very hello, all right. This is all stuff. Are you hearing him on the mic?
Yeah,
This is all stuff that is hearing like very explicitly on planet Earth, right? Um, out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, where you imagine that, yep, I would be really interested in the goings on of all that stuff if I was Doctor Strange or any of the
or
intervening
like
Avengers that I'm
Ant-Man,
sure are
right?
there.
This
Mhm.
this is a big enough and obviously world-ending enough thing that it's a problem.
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah, I also think that you know, the the state of the Marvel universe is still in quite a lot of flux.
right,
And there's kind of a question of what, like what is coming next, what's driving things, right? I guess I would say there's no Thanos if that makes sense. Something that I was hoping for actually out of this movie. This is my secret hope of the movie that I was pinning some stuff on. I was like, "Oh my god, this is Galactus. They're going to straight
yeah,
up do Galactus." I thought I was like, the post credit scene is going to be either the spaceship they fly out and they find out that Galactus is heading to Earth, or it's going to be Arishem goes to his brother Galactus as Galactus is murdering a civilization and goes, "You need to go to planet Earth next." They just like declared war on the Celestials or something, right? I would have been all for that. That would have been sweet. Instead, it was more Bathos bullshit, and I fucking hated it. I guess we could talk about the post credit scene now.
yeah. Let's talk about the two post-credit scenes. One,
Yeah, okay.
because I think one's more interesting than the other. The first one I think
That's
is
true.
less.
Yeah, one of them I am on board with every day of the week. The other one I think is
Well,
stupid and dumb, and I don't care
let's
about.
start with the stupid and dumb, which is I assume that Harry Styles is like Star
Yep.
Fox, which is like
With the
is that
first of all, I don't even this we have exhausted the deep lore. I don't know who Star Fox is. They
right?
call him the brother of Thanos. Okay, I guess.
Is like Thanos supposed to be an Eternal? Is that like the like
I do think that that is the implication. I think that Thanos is yeah, let's Google this.
Eros? Like Eros makes more sense as an Eternal, right? Like Like, because like that's like a god name, right?
Oh
Like,
my god. I just want to read this sentence. Created by Jim Starlin. This makes sense. Jim Starlin also created Thanos and first appearing in 1973's Invincible Iron Man number 55. Eros is Thanos' younger brother with good looks and the power of controlling people's emotions. And Eros is both the superhero called Star Fox and a massive fuckboy.
yeah.
You know, I guess I'm on board with that to a certain extent.
Um, is Thanos an Eternal? I guess he.
Wow, yeah, apparently so Thanos was born on Saturn's moon Titan as the son of Eternals Alars and Suisan, his brothers Eros of Titan. Thanos carries the deviant gene and as such shares the physical appearance of the Eternals' cousin race. More like Bathos. Yes, thank you. I know. Ah, God, I know. Yeah, so I guess this seems to suggest that this seems to suggest that Thanos was an Eternal the whole time. That's fun. That's fine. He
Yeah.
shows up, he's very lame and stupid. He makes dumb jokes.
Wait, but
Patton
this
Oswalt makes more dumb jokes. I hate all of it. I fucking hate all of it.
is this implying that like the Thanos snap thing, like the Thanos tells a story about like how his world died. Is that supposed to be like an emergence? Like, was he like the kid of a like? Is he just like wrong, or is he like I need to snap to keep Eternals from like to like kill enough people so Eternals don't emerge? Is that like what like
I don't know.
they're
I
gonna have
get
to
it.
explain this at some point? It's gonna be bad. Like I
It's
don't
gonna
think
be bad.
um like they could just like not make him like they could just make like Eros not Thanos' brother, right? Like you just like make Thanos not an Eternal. Maybe they will.
All right,
Maybe they'll
please
be
stop
like,
messing with my
like
microphone.
like
Oh no, I'm sorry to all of you that I'm sure is here are hearing this.
well, we can't hear it because I think you're broadcasting on your like I can't hear it. Like are you broadcasting on your headset
Oh,
mic?
maybe. Well, no, I'm broadcasting on my good mic.
Oh, you're right.
He's bumping the thing because he's
Oh, you
trying to
know
get my
what? It's
attention.
Discord probably filtering it out, which is why we have
Oh,
problems
you're
with
right, it probably is. I
It'll probably be
apologize to everyone on the cast that is hearing these bumps.
I'm gonna have to fix that. Maybe I'll just pull it from the from the
Anyway,
yeah.
yeah, you know, I think that there's cool stuff to do with Celestials and Eternals, right? In a cosmic sense, right? There's definitely places to go. Which I was like Galactus, this is the perfect place to go, right? It's the perfect giant cosmic villain that was just like Thanos that you could bring in to sort of motivate kind of the underpinnings of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But you know, they don't do that. They bring in Eros, this guy, and I don't love it. Yeah.
Yeah. But the second post credit scene is also who's the leprechaun supposed to be before we get into that? Like
I
you
don't I don't
okay.
fucking know.
Never
I don't know
mind.
any yeah. Like I said, we've exhausted my lore.
All right. Second one is we find out that Kit Harrington is actually Jon Snow for real. Do you know anything about the Black Knight? Because I did not until I Googled it
Oh,
after.
I do know about the Black Knight. The Black Knight I think is a cool character who is by the way related to this lore. Though he has mostly shown up I don't know the Black Knight in and of himself very well, but he shows up in a offshoot superhero team all the time called the Defenders, which is sort of like this shitty counterpoint to the Avengers. But I have a soft spot in my heart for the Defenders, and I think the Defenders are a cool superhero team.
They,
Mostly because
they were like the net like if the Netflix series had continued, they would have been the Defenders, right? Like they're like typically a little bit more
oh
straightforward.
fuck, I forgot about that. Yeah. Well, so okay, there's kind of there's different versions of the Defenders. One version, like the original version, is maybe like the most stacked lineup in any superhero team's history. It is the Silver Surfer, Doctor Strange, the Hulk, and somebody else that I can't remember. And it's just like they are like cool characters, but they are like cool characters who are you know, who are not like typically affiliated with the Avengers. But then the Defenders kind of come back and uh are part of sort of like a lower level, you know, Thanks for reminding me we'll never get more Netflix Marvel shows. Yeah. They're sort of a lower level superhero team than the
The
Avengers are, right?
the person you are forgetting, and how dare you, buddy, is Namor.
Oh my god, you're right. Yeah, it's Namor. Yeah, Namor. Right? And like these are like some of the heaviest hitters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I don't think that there is any there's any Avengers lineup that is more stacked than that Defenders lineup. Like having the Hulk, Silver Surfer, Doctor Strange all on one team. God damn. And those are all happen to be some of my favorite characters, obviously, which is part of why I have a soft spot for the Defenders and for Black Knight, who shows up in the Defenders comics. I think he's also been an Avenger, right? But he has some cool shit. He has a special sword called the Ebony Blade that's related to Eternal stuff, right?
So when I
Now
googled it, like it is related to King Arthur, which is related because it came up in like the Ebony Blade's like created by Merlin, I think, if I remember correctly.
okay.
Um, uh, Black Knight Marvel. I googled this very quickly. Like Dane Whitman, um, do Nathan Garrett is so his uncle is a Black Knight who's like a bad guy. Um, oh, do
Yeah, it is a cursed blade. Is
right.
the cool thing about the Ebony Blade, and that's like part of what makes the Black Knight, cool.
Yeah, you do
It's kind of like an adamantium sword. It can like cut through anything and
right.
stuff.
No,
It does
it
like
is strong. It can cut through vibranium, which is
whoa.
the important thing, right? Like this is like it can cut through anything. It was originally held by Sir Percival. Um, yeah, this goes back. This is definitely related to like I don't know. I assume it's related to something King Arthur because that came up in the movie, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, yeah, that definitely makes sense. Yeah, so there's just like I've always liked the Black Knight. I think the Black Knight is cool. He's a pretty minor character overall, but I'm happy that he's showed up. And there is another voice off screen. You don't see him, but you hear Mahershala Ali, who
who
obviously
is
has an incredibly recognizable voice. We know that he's casted to be Blade,
wait?
so the Black Knight and Blade are gonna team up to fight some fucking
Oof,
vampires. I guess I don't know, man.
I
Like
want
I'm on board for that.
I hope Wesley Snipes has a cameo in the Blade movie. I really want.
Whoa. I wonder if well, they've already done Stick. So there, so vampires are like a thing in the Marvel
Right.
like the Marvel universe, and there's this order that fights them. But the order that fights them is related to like the Hand and Daredevil and Stick. Who's like the guy that trained Daredevil, but they already did Stick in the Daredevil TV show
Right,
with just like
but that is like
the Hand.
you can discard that canon if you want,
Yeah,
right?
that's true. I mean, they got the best guy ever for it. Who God, what the fuck is that guy's name? Hold on.
Oh, he's
Now I
the
want
blind
like
guy, right?
yeah, he's the blind guy, Stick MC, because he's played by just like the um I can't remember the actor's name. He's like a super great character actor that just like everybody fucking loves this guy.
Uh,
He is played by Scott Glenn. Who I mean, like, I feel like he's just like very well known. Um I'm trying to think what are like the famous things that Scott Glenn has been in that you might remember. Yeah, I mean there's some of this stuff like he's in The Hunt for the Red October, he's in The Silence of the Lambs, but like what would you know him from?
yeah. I mean, I think like I hear that Wesley Snipes hates the line, but I want him to show up in the Blade movie and say some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill, which is like I feel like the iconic line from those movies.
Oh. But yeah, so I do hope that Blade is
I mean,
is cool and
yeah.
and
You know,
more fun than the last 3 Marvel movies have been.
I am sure that you're gonna get like at some point you're gonna get a Deadpool cameo where Ryan Reynolds mouths off about being like having been like that character in Blade, but it'll work because it's Deadpool, right?
Yeah.
Like, I wonder if we're like, I guess we can get Josh Brolin as Cable since Thanos is dead, right? Like you could do that. Which is like
Yeah, I mean they've done double casting before in the MCU. So I think in this movie, I think Cersei played someone in Captain Marvel. So
That
that's not
yeah.
nothing.
Yeah, right? Like, what we need is for Terrence Howard to come back as somebody, right? Like,
Yeah. Oh my god.
yeah, or, I wa have Terrence Howard come back as Black Panther since unfortunately, what's his name passed away.
Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Chadwick Boseman passed away. Because like you have to pass off that mantle at some point, right?
Mhm.
And like ideally you do treat him another character, but like I think like
Well, I
his
think you're
sis
gonna do it to Shuri. Yeah,
but
because she's
Shuri's
become.
actress is like anti-vax, right? So like that might
Ah,
have like a real
okay.
world, yeah, that might have like a real world problem, right?
Yeah, I
Like
mean, maybe. I just know that in the comics that she becomes the Black Panther for a while.
yeah. Oh no, no.
So
And
I wouldn't
like
be surprised if.
that would that's like the obvious way you go with it, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
just that like there's like real world concerns there. Um
Yep. But I will say I think I am much more interested in the future of I guess I don't know Guardians 3 is cosmic stuff. I'm just much more interested in the future of the sort of down to earth Marvel Cinematic
yeah.
Universe than I am in the comic stuff. I also sort of felt this way like there was
You know what?
there was the
I'm going to say to Lou, like to alleviate your sadness, we have a chance of getting back Purple Man because he didn't technically die, right? Like David Tennant as Purple Man, I thought was
mm,
great. I love that.
I also thought he was great. I thought that that was the show that was really good was
Yeah,
Jessica Jones.
I agree.
Um
Uh,
But, uh but yeah, like, I think I'm much more interested in, like, the low ground Marvel Cinematic Universe stuff, right? Like, the Dark Avengers that we talked about last time with, or during Black Widow, actually, is when we talked about them. Where it seems like, there is this, like, shadow, group that is like, adopting in heroes to make the Dark Avengers, and, uh and this stuff with Blade and Black Knight, whatever this ends up looking like. I actually sort of secretly think that they might appear in the Morbius movie for
oh
like,
God,
did
you're
you see the
right.
Morbius
I
trailer?
did see the Morbius
That
trailer.
so that movie looks awful. It looks terrible, right? But one thing I'll note is that Michael Keaton was in that trailer with a very New York accent
Oh,
saying like,
it's a Sony movie. He's definitely supposed to be. He's definitely supposed to be the
yeah, I was like, "Holy fuck, is he supposed to be that guy?" Which would put Morbius in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which would make Morbius fighting Blade and Black Knight a fucking thing. That it would be a thing.
yeah.
And who knows? Maybe that's a thing. I don't know.
I think it definitely is. I think that like Morbius is. I think that that's definitely supposed to be Vulture. That's the character's name. I think
Oh,
it's supposed
good.
to
Another superhero movie for Jared Leto to fuck up.
be. Well, like
Rough.
the whole thing is supposed to be like the line between villain and hero has been crossed or whatever, right? Like you could like give him this movie and then like have Blade kill him, right? Like and have it not be the end of the world. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I have no plans on seeing Morbius because that trailer looks bad and I'm not interested in it at all.
buddy, we're gonna have to see it. We're gonna see it. We're gonna do a podcast
Oh,
on it. We do this
we're
to
gonna do a
ourselves now,
podcast
buddy.
on it.
If we haven't
Oh,
gotten rid of this
you know what I
podcast
think
by
it might
then,
be? I think it's because so many of these Marvel movies kinda got scrunched, you know what I mean? Like, it felt
yeah,
like, because of the pandemic, right? I just like, man, because we have Spider-Man coming out in,
yeah.
like, 3 weeks or whatever, like, fucking the 1st week of December, I think, is when Spider-Man: No Way Home comes out, and it's just, like, going from Black Widow to Shang-Chi to Venom to this to Spider-Man
And then we have
is
to
a
watch.
lot.
Then we have to watch the what is it? The Clint Barton Christmas special.
Oh my god. Yeah. I mean, there was the shows, obviously. There was the Snyder cut earlier this year, which was obviously, great. I had a great time. Wonder Woman 1984, didn't have a great time with that one, right?
Yeah,
It's just like there's a lot of superheroes
yeah.
coming out right now. Like honestly, the thing I am most excited about in the not too distant future is the fucking Matrix.
Right. What?
Every time I see that trailer, I'm just like, mm, this shit looks so good. I
Yeah.
love
You know
everything.
what? We may have to like be like we're putting off No Way Home.
Oh,
Because
that's true. Yeah,
because
let's
I want to do Matrix December. I think that's like a great theme, and like I love those movies. So
Yeah, because we wanna do we yeah, if we wanna do Matrix December, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks in December,
y-
and they each align to one of the movies, right? So it would be the 6th, the 13th, and the 20th, and I think it comes out the 24th, 22nd,
I think it's the
24th.
22nd.
Yeah, it's normally the Wednesday. You do the Wednesday before Christmas. So it'll come out on that the 22nd, and then we do it the following the 27th, and then all four Matrix movies. By the way, Jimmy Elias, if you are listening to this podcast, because I love you, I made a promise to you like 4 years ago that if we ever did the Matrix on the podcast, you would come on to guest star, and I intend to hold true to that promise. So fucking like DM me on Twitter or something, and we can figure out the
Yeah,
logistics.
I think we also need to invite friend of the cast, Monica, on of the
Yeah, we do
Unwise
need to invite
Index.
because we've talked about it with Monica too. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I am really jazzed for this. So what like I talked about going through the A to Z list of movies on HBO Max, and I got to the Matrix movies, and I was like, oh, I want to watch them, and I was like, no, I have to hold off. I have to like deprive myself for a little bit longer until we get to until we get to November or December, and we get to do Matrix December.
Yeah, I mean, we could, you can always watch them more than like those. Like a couple of years ago, I watched the Matrix, the first Matrix, for some reason. And then I got like a real bad migraine, and I like laid in my recliner and watched the second two movies, which is a great way to pass the time when you're feeling terrible.
Mhm.
Um, and like those movies, like I don't know. As we are as contrarians as we are on this podcast typically, I am a defender of the second and third movies. Although, I
I'm also a defender of well, I'm a weird defender of the second and third movies. I think that it's actually becoming more and more common to defend the second and third
yeah, I
movies.
agree.
It seems like that is a more and more popular position to
I
hold.
I think in like kind of like the YouTube essay kind of like world, right? Like
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
I think they are not the sequels that people wanted to action movie Matrix 1, right?
Mhm.
But they are like good sequels to like philosophical movie Matrix 1.
I also think that they projected well, right? If that makes sense, which is to say that they aged better because the zeitgeist shifted in their favor, if that makes sense,
Yeah, it
right?
does.
Like, so for instance, I remember people really cringing hard at the idea of the big climactic moment of the Matrix Revolutions being 1v1 with Agent Smith and Neo. But that's like an anime thing, right? And they have a very anime fight. They have it like a Dragon Ball Z
Oh,
fight,
that
right? And
fucking
I think
Mr. Anderson, why do you persist? I love that fucking speech. Like,
I also love that fucking speech, and I also just love that whole fight scene. I honestly, and I think that is because, like, the influences that made the Matrix that were part of the DNA of the Matrix, right? Like anime and this kind of stuff. That stuff has only gotten more popular, and
yeah,
people are more accustomed to it. And at the time in 2003, that was a much more sort of radical way to sort of
yeah. No,
structure your movie.
the Wachowskis were definitely like, there's the Animatrix,
Yeah.
and like as the friend of the other half of the Unwise Index actually points out, it's like, I think somebody else tweeted this, but it's like, a bunch of people are gonna find out that in an MMO that's now dead, Morpheus canonically dies, right?
Mhm.
Like, um, I don't know if
Yeah,
the game
yeah.
is still canon, but like,
That's now dead.
yeah, like I don't know if it's still canon for this movie, but like that explains why it's not like why it's clearly like not Morpheus that is Morpheus, right? Like in the trailer.
Yeah.
Um
I also think that it gets a lot of slack in the way that the prequels do, right? Like, so for instance, I think that the popular conception of the prequels has also changed quite a lot in the last 15 years, right? I mean, it's funny, like I follow a couple of people who are younger than me by about 10 years, maybe like the like early 20s, right? And the way these guys talk about the prequels is the way I talk about the prequels, right? But it's clear they grew up with the prequels, not, like I got them as a teenager. They got them as like really little kids, right?
yeah,
And like
we got the
truly grew up on, the prequels and the Clone Wars or whatever. And the way that they talk about some of the later era like Star Wars stuff, it is striking. And I just feel like that tsunami is coming, right? When like the Zoomers take the zeitgeist from the millennials, and we will be in like full everyone loves the prequels land, right?
yeah. Well, I mean, we to
But
be
I think
fair,
the same thing is happening with, or the same thing will happen to the Matrix sequels, because I also think that that wave of like kids have that same sort of evocative reaction to like. I remember thinking,
I still think this is us, right? Because the Matrix movies are like mature enough movies that like they're movies that like we grow up with in kind of like that later phase, right? Like,
sure, yeah, okay, yeah. I just think that like if you were, like I was 14, 13 or 14 when like those movies came out, right? And I was relatively animated by them, right? We were pretty Matrix obsessed in that era or whatever. Um, but I think that if I'm 8 and I watch like the Battle of Zion with the mechs or whatever, I think that's the kind of shit that like sets my brain on fire. And I just go like absolutely ape shit for it. So, like I said, I very much think that those sequels are going to age really well. Um, for in the same way that like the Star Wars prequels have aged pretty well.
yeah, no, I think I
But I
agree with
guess we'll
you.
talk about that
Yeah.
next month. This is a spoiler.
Yeah, that's a spoiler for Matrix Revolutions that there's a big battle in Zion.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
What has been going on with your week? We haven't even talked about like week
yeah.
stuff, like video game stuff.
Yeah, well, speaking of dystopian futures, I've mostly been playing Cyberpunk.
Me too. I'm like 20 hours deep actually into Cyberpunk. Where have you gotten in the main what's like the easiest like spoiler free way to discuss how far we've gotten in the main story?
Okay, so on the one leg, I have I went out into the Badlands and I met with I like the engineer from Arasaka. I
Okay,
have
I did that quest. Yeah. So
yeah.
I'm actually maybe ahead of that.
I
I can't
just
remember.
got a call back from the character in the Badlands. Um
I Okay, yeah.
because
Okay.
I am in the process of setting up the um the activity for the parade
Okay,
in
yeah. So I
Japantown.
I think I am one quest on both of those lines ahead of you. Um because I've actually been deviating from the main quest. I think when I first I
You
think
were
when I first
you said you were going to mainline it, but then
yeah, I was mainlining it for a while and then I got punted off of it. Because they made you wait, right? Like there's one where it's like you got to wait a day for this guy's phone call, and I was doing a bunch of side quests, and I eventually got to this point where I was like, I have just like a couple more thousand because I eventually decided that I wanted some like I wanted mantis blades,
yeah, yeah.
the thing, and it's like that's like 15,000 money. Um, so I went and I was like doing stuff with I was just like doing like side gigs to rack up the cash to get the mantis blades before going back and continuing the main quest. So
How far
uh
how have you gotten on the third leg, which is with the fixer, or not the fixer, the woman who contracts you out for the job in the first place?
uh
Have you met
I
Fingers?
I'm have I met fingers?
He's a Ripper Doc on Jig Jig
Yeah,
Street.
I'm past that actually. I'm way
Okay.
past that. I've done 2 or 3 quests past that actually.
Okay, no, because like I am just past the waiting phase for that one because they all have waiting phases, right? Like
Okay, yeah,
they
yeah,
all
yeah,
have
yeah, yeah.
like you have to do something, and then you have to wait like a day for them to like get their shit together while you go do other stuff, which
Yeah,
I think is
because
an interesting piece of game design.
I actually also like that as a piece of game design quite a lot. So yeah, but I'm now more or less back to just mainlining the quest. I actually forcibly halted. There was one quest that ended in a position that I felt like it was asking me to make like a big decision for my character. And it gave me a very like loaded dialogue option that was like, do you accept this offer? And like it was one that was like, "Yeah, I accept. No, I want to think about my options." And I was like, "There are options?"
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I clicked no so that if something else pops up later, I have a feeling that what I have stumbled upon is some sort of like multiple choice gate, and this is just the first one that I've seen. But that I might run into
yeah.
other factions or something along those lines.
I've
And
been wondering if like you pick one of these three routes to like resolve the plot, and I'm
yeah,
not
I
sure.
was also wondering that exact same thing, actually. So I have held off on that portion of it because I want to evaluate, like I want to evaluate my options, and I've been following through on the parade stuff most recently. Um, I am
But
finding that that I am still not sinking into the world itself, though there are more details that I am taking advantage of and kind of I have a higher opinion, I guess I would say, of Cyberpunk over the last week than I did last week. Which is just honestly a lot of little things, right? Like the advertisements. I'm paying a little bit more attention to sort of these like world building details, right? The advertisements around town, the messages that like you'll read as part of these quests or whatever, getting to understand the different, kind of like factions and who they are and what they're doing. And there's just like a lot of like little stuff like that that is that's pretty cool and pretty interesting, right? Like one of the side quests that I did for money was like Jackie's funeral. Did you do that side
yes,
quest?
I did that very early. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's just like there's like a lot of detail in there that I just think is really neat. Um and I'm getting a little bit more into that. But I also just think that on a raw systems level, the stealth has impressed me enough that I think it's good. At first I didn't think it was that great, but now that I've unlocked some different quick hacks, right? And like some different breach stuff with hacking, and I feel like I have a lot of cool options when it comes to stealthing, right? For a long time it was mostly just I blind a guy, I walk up behind him and like knock him out, but the more stealth missions I've come across, the less that tactic works. But there are other cool, like things that I can do, right? Like I can get an enemy to come to me. I can honestly, the most useful quick hack I have is called ping, which just shows you everyone on the network briefly. So you can just see where everybody is, right? Which is so insanely useful when you're in these really crowded locations. You don't want anybody kind of like sneaking up on you, that kind of thing. Um, so I've mostly like connected with it as a stealth game at this point. Not quite to the level of something like, Deus Ex Human Revolution, which is maybe what I would say is the best stealth game I've maybe ever played. Maybe that. I'm not sure how much I believe that, but it's just the first one that like jumped to mind. But good enough that it's good. It's solid. It has me on that level of just kind of like doing stealth shit.
Yeah, no, I'm doing like less stealth, but still like I do a lot of like crouch, walk up, shoot somebody in the head with a silenced pistol, and they go down immediately, and then like do that like until somebody notices enough that like it's a problem.
I have also gotten good at stealthing and shooting people in the face with silenced pistols, so I understand that.
I've got like my handguns tree like pretty checked out, so it's like you
Oh,
do
really?
like you do like a ton more. I've actually been lately focusing on the tech tree because like I like the crafting stuff. But it's
Mm.
like the big thing, and this is maybe like exploit level, but like I unlocked the perk that lets you upgrade components to the other components usually at like a 10-to-1 ratio, so I can like take like you know 10 common components, turn it into a green component, or like take 100 common components and then turn that into 10 green components and turn that into one blue components. You obviously see the
Whoa.
um, and
That is
that's
huge. I actually the reason I went for the mantis blades is because I couldn't keep my katana like maxed. Like I just kept fight it was really disheartening. I kept picking up like stupid fucking like you like white knives off of guys that I was killing, right? And I had a higher DPS on my fucking katana. I was like, God damn, this sucks, dude. Like
yeah. No, I agree that that's a problem. I think that like I have found better ways to keep up with it, but like also like part of the thing there that I was gonna say is that like doing those combinations get you experience, especially
Mhm.
crafting experience. So like I have like bumped my crafting level by like 3 just by like upgrading components into other components, which I don't know, not like I don't know. Like I have been having a lot of fun with like some of like the more fun side missions. Like in the process of driving around and getting all the tarot cards, I like went a bunch of different places, right? Like Pacifica's a really cool. It's like a fucking war zone, right?
Yeah.
Or like something I discovered is that Fingers, I hate as a character, has the best leg upgrades for as Ripper Doc. Um,
Yeah, most of the Ripper docs have something that is like a
y-
special. I've
unique,
visited a bunch of them at this point, but
yeah.
there's always one that is like there's always one category of theirs where they're like super specialized at it.
Yeah, like the one in Pacifica has the best. I did the explosive arms, which don't always work 100%, but they're still cool. Like that, like the game's pretty glitchy, and like there's some like
Oh
weird.
yeah, I ran into some major glitches, honestly, which was very frustrating. I had a glitch that like I had to go back to an old save from like an hour previous that I was like,
Ooh,
this is some very basic quest AI and it's bullshit.
Yeah, I haven't had anything quite that bad, but like it hasn't been great.
Yeah, it was one of those things where it was on a mission. I was stealthing, where I found a piece of a later quest, and I completed a later quest objective before I had it as a real quest objective, right? Just because I was exploring the map. And then I triggered that quest objective, and the thing was dead, and, like, I just had no way to progress because, like, I had already completed that thing, but, like, the quest itself was essentially broken on that, and I was just like, "This is fucking awful. How did no one find this?" Right?
Yeah,
Like,
because they're usually pretty good about that. Like,
yeah, I mean, so it's not quite so straightforward as I get to the next quest objective and it says, kill this person, but I've already killed that person, so it's just forever unfulfilled. It is actually that there are coded doors all around the map that are opening and closing at certain times. Um, and for some reason, the fact that I killed this person has closed all of the doors that would otherwise be like open for me to progress through. So
yeah.
yeah.
But I do find some of the side gigs to be variously interesting. Like some of them are like kind of boring, but like I've had a couple of good moments. Like, there's one like the like. Have you done any of the Delamain or like the cabs or like
Yeah,
going
yeah,
around?
I love those. I did all of those. We were waiting to put together a group for Mythics. And so I was just like streaming, I was showing them, and I did all of those missions back to back to back. They were pretty fun.
I think most so I think they're mostly pretty good. And like there's like this like line though, right? Like one of the cabs is voiced by GLaDOS essentially,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
Which I thought was neat. And I thought this is a great reference until she said the cake is a lot like she said the cake line. There's no more cake, right? It's like okay, then now you've gone from like cool reference to cringe. Stop it. Um, but
Yeah.
it's but like it's there's some good stuff in there too. Like there's like a basically a murder mystery about who killed the mayor of Night City. Um and like it's left
Oh,
very
really?
unresolved. Yeah, like it's you will I think it's one that will get a call from someone named Elizabeth Perales and
I
she
think I have that in my inventory. I just
yeah,
haven't done that yet. So the ones that I've done is
that
like the
one's a pretty good
Delamain
side quest.
ones. I did Jackie's funeral. I did
That's also a spoiler, but I can't stop you.
oh, oh, you're right. That is a bit of a spoiler. Fuck, I'm so sorry, everyone. I shouldn't have said that. Well, whatever. And I've done like a number of other ones that are like relatively minor. I've done a couple of like the gigs, like the true like very side quests. I actually like those quite a lot, mostly because they seem to be the most sort of like expressive gameplay wise. Like there are some where I just like run and gun and I come in blasting. And there are some that are like any of the ones that are like steal this thing, I always do those as secretly as possible. I don't want anybody to know, right? And it's almost like a role play decision at that point, right? But when it's like killing the guy missions, I just like get off my motorcycle, whip out my katana slash mantis blades, and just start going ham. Though I will say, one thing that I have figured out is that the driving is not so bad if you have a motorcycle. It's bad in the cars. It is okay on the motorcycles because on the motorcycles you can thread a lot of the needles that you would otherwise like super crash into.
Yeah, no, so this is this is something that has been bothering me kind of unreasonably about the driving specifically is cars regularly make left turns from the right lane. Like they just like make the wrong turn. Like it's just like it's such a dumb thing, but it's like you know otherwise it's fine, but it's like I'm like in the left lane and I'm going straight across the intersection and then like the like and also because of the way the lights change for you, like the cars don't always behave and like I've gotten like sideswiped because like the car is like doing its thing it's supposed to, but like I theoretically have the right. It's like you have these traffic rules, and if they don't actually follow them, and it's bothering me, Cyberpunk. But it's like it's a little thing, but yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you though. The motorcycles make it much better. Um, oh, what else? So I think some of the stuff like I'm started to get tired of the gigs just because they are so samey. But I agree with you. But I do like playing them as they come, right? Like I screwed up one of those missions that you're talking, like the stealth missions. Like it's when they like attach like a bug to a car, right? And like I like managed just to find a way in that's stealthy. I'm like okay, and I managed to like set an escape route, and then like I sneak up and then like I get caught as I'm placing him in the car. I'm like, fuck it. And I just like run away. And it's like I'm like hightailing it out of there as people are chasing me and shooting me. And like I managed to get away. Like, okay, that's a very cool moment, right? And like I get the calls like, you were supposed to fucking keep it quiet. Hopefully it doesn't work out. And then I get paid out, right?
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this is like, this is like I do not care enough about being optimal that like, like it played out fine, right? So it's good.
Yeah.
It's good. Um, but it's I can't like I think there's some balance problems. Like in did you go and like raid the cave?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I wiped on that fight a bunch of times.
me too. Me
I
too.
had to I had to take a very specific path. This is just like a melee thing where, like I said before, like I was really just no thoughts, head empty. It's just run at guy, mash, attack, like light attack or whatever. I don't even think I had the mantis blades at this point. The mantis blades make it a little bit easier because literally jump. Like if you target someone with a strong attack, you will just like leap 20 feet, across the room to get them or whatever. And I just could not brute force that one, and I got to this point where I basically had to one like go kind of piece by piece by piece, and I had to huck grenades like out a window essentially to kill this big concentration of guys in the center because I could just never get to those guys in the center without dying because there was just so many of them and there was so much damage density. So I was basically just clearing around, the circle, staying out of line of sight of their guns, and hucking grenades over the wall until they all died.
No,
Like,
I didn't get quite that bad, but like the thing I realized is that like when they huck the poison grenades, sometimes the car will detonate the grenade for you and it won't kill you, but like the poison grenades do way too much damage. Like you can't like it's like hard to like you have to literally stand still and just chug, max stocks to out heal it, which is not great. Um,
it's not great.
but it's been fun. I have a cowboy hat. Like I saw like a hatch like in the middle of like just like kind of like a street like field of like electronic stuff in like the middle
Sure.
of like a city block. I'm like, that's neat. And I walk over and there's like legendary like hacker boots in it. They don't really do anything, but they they're orange and they have a unique model. So I'm like, oh, that's cool, right? Like, um, it is a very cool world. There's just like you can tell some things are half baked. Like I,
Yeah.
I have had a lot of moments where I'm like, this was probably supposed to be something bigger, and they didn't have the time. There's a lot of doors that are like locked that I assume that are never going to be unlocked just because like there makes no sense, which is fine, right? But like,
Yeah, I'm disappointed by the verticality of the map. I sort of wish that I had more way to move into the buildings because the rules for moving in and out of buildings are very like, on in something like GTA, it makes sense because you almost never go into buildings in GTA. It's almost all essentially outdoors. So the buildings are essentially just gigantic blocks that you never ever interact with, right? Um, versus in Cyberpunk, you're going into these buildings all the time, right? And you see notifications in these buildings, like all the time. But so much of that is sort of like superficial that it actually kind of bothers me, I guess, in a way. Because some buildings you really can just walk up and go deep into, and there's apartments in each of the individual apartments or whatever. Um, and most are not like that. And that like dissonance, I think, is kind of sucks.
yeah, that's fair enough. Have you been doing anything else with your week that you want to talk about?
Whoa, not really. Hearthstone Mercenaries doing more WoW plus 20s. Same old, same old, I
Yeah,
guess.
we downed Kel'Thuzad.
Oh, we
Um,
down Kel'Thuzad, which is great. I love that fight. I'm sure we'll do a full episode on Castle Nathri when we get
yeah,
ahead
we'll
of the
we'll do it
curve.
next week because we're gonna definitely down Sylvanas
Definitely,
this
yeah,
week.
definitely down Sylvanas in 1 week. Honestly, maybe, right? Like, I thought we were pretty good. I like, one of the things I remember feeling about Denathrius is we got to Denathrius and that first phase just like whipped us so fucking hard that I was just like, wow, that's hard. That sucks, right? The Sylvanas' first phase doesn't feel like that to me. Sylvanas' first phase feels pretty, like doable. There's not a lot of like room for fucking up, right? And it's just a matter of getting 5, 10, however many pulls it takes to kind of get that down pat. The second
No
phase though,
no offense the other people in the raid. But that was the Thursday group. I feel like we might have more troubles with the full Tuesday group.
That's true. That's fair. That's tough. You know.
I'm going to say this for Lou's benefit. Healers adjust. Um,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is just like learning to how to dodge those like the
oh,
Sylvanas patterns or whatever. I got hit by so many of those
oh
arrows at
yeah,
first
me.
just because it seems like she casts one right at her feet every time, and if you're close in, you get
It's hard
nailed.
to see, right? Like, and this is what I mean by like, no offense, but like, you and I were having trouble with it, and we're generally pretty good about like doing the mechanics. I'm a little bit worse about it because I try too hard to like get more DPS in. But because I'm
Yeah.
constantly trying to one up you with like 10 less eye levels. Yeah, thank you, Lou. Uh, but like, I don't know. I think it's gonna be hard for like the whole raid to adjust to. Frankly, I think we'll get there, but I think it might take us a little bit more than a week.
That's fair. Okay. Yeah, I mean that's fair. I would expect even with the Thursday group it's gonna take more than a week, but that seems normal to me,
Yeah.
right?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
you want the AOTC fight to be like longer and more drawn out. But I'm definitely very glad that we killed Kel'Thuzad.
Oh yeah.
Like I said, I really love that Kel'Thuzad fight. Like I think somebody asked on Reddit the other day is like, what is your favorite like what are your favorite raid fights? Or maybe it wasn't on Reddit, maybe it was on a Discord that I'm in. And the thing that I said was I like fights that are evocative, right? So I'm reminded of Gul'dan in Legion, for instance, and also uh like Kel'Thuzad is a fight I like because it's really evocative of like I do legitimately feel like like that is a fight against a lich, right? He's dying, he's coming back, he's summoning undead guys, he's using frost magic, right? Like that just feels like it is a I don't know, it's like the quintessential lich fight in the way that, maybe some fights are like the quintessential dragon fight, right? Or something kind of along those sorts of lines. Those are the fights that I like connect to the most, I guess. And so um I just love doing Kel'Thuzad. I think Kel'Thuzad is a ton of fun.
Yeah. I like Kel'Thuzad and Fate Scribe as well, just because.
Oh yeah, Fate Scribe. I also enjoy Fate Scribe. I enjoy Fate Scribe though a little bit from like the you can really feel yourself carrying the raid sometimes, or not carrying the raid, but like because
I am
those
doing
rooms
the
are
mechanic, and
individualized.
yeah, yeah, and we are
Yeah, yeah,
succeeding,
yeah.
right?
Like you do the mechanic and you lock it, and you're like, yeah, I like we're not wiping because I did the thing and I did it so good, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I also like them because I get to run Touch of Death on both those fights. They're very ad heavy. I get to do,
Oh, interesting. That
yeah.
makes sense. Yeah.
No, it's
I tend to do really good DPS on Fate Scribe actually, because those ads line up with Bladestorm really well.
oh, Toho Madness. Yes, I will agree with you, Lou. Like that, like it is a little bit easier on me as a monk, but like doing that inner ring just is like fucking like,
Oh yeah, the very tightest ring. Oof.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the first time we did Fate Scribe, we did it. They nerfed the timer on Fate Scribe by a little bit. It used to be a little bit tighter. I don't think by that much, maybe by like 5 or 10 seconds or whatever. But the first time I did that was before the nerfs, and like the timing was so tight. We wiped constantly to just like not getting the rings in on time, which is why some of like the ways that I was suggesting we change like the strategy was just like, like we were like basically counting milliseconds. We found that reading out the names of people that took too long, right? We had to get it to a point where we were just naming the people to the specific things, and we couldn't even say Baron 1, Billamong 2, whatever 3, because we just didn't have enough time. So it was literally just Baron, Billabong, whatever, like down the line, just because you had to get it out that fast, and people had to respond that fast to everything that was going, which was like, to be honest, maybe awesome and cool at a strategic level. I think it's kind of nuts that the game was that well tuned to kind of like push us to that level, because everything else about the fight was fine. I don't actually think that fight cares about DPS all that much.
It doesn't.
Um, but yeah, that is a nuts fight.
Um, yeah, no, but it is fun. It is fun. But yeah, what else? We're way over time, so maybe
We're
I'll,
way over time. Yeah.
yeah,
So
I can just leave it there. I'll talk about the books I've been reading next week. If you want to tell us what you thought about, think about any of the things we talked about in this podcast, including the Eternals and uh, World of Warcraft, and Cyberpunk. You can reach us at subdersplaygames@gmail.com or podcast@subdersplaygames.com. You can follow twitch.tv/subdersplaygames where these podcasts go out live, and you can see Buddy's cat, Orion. And you can leave us a rating and a review on iTunes. Since they gave us a shout out, I'll give them a shout out back. Go listen to our friends at Comic Club, the Comic Club podcast, where our raid mate Savadar co-hosts with a guy named Hunter, who I don't know. But they're a similar podcast to us, except they focus on current events in the gaming industry, other than like topics. So there's that. Buddy, you have anything you want to promote?
I have nothing. Do I have anything I want to promote? I'm definitely streaming on Friday. I don't remember what I'm doing for Buddy Gets Good. I also think I'm going to stream on Thursday too. There's an indie game coming out called Punk Wars that I've been looking at, which is a 4X game where the different factions are different versions of like, it's like steampunk, diesel punk, like the different, those are the different factions, which I think is cool. I think that's a sweet
cool
idea. So I've been thinking about doing a Buddy Gets Good guest stream to hit that. But otherwise I have nothing else I'm looking to promote.
Yeah. Do you remember we had this like long argument about whether World of Warcraft was steampunk or diesel punk? Or like somebody said it was steampunk and I was like, no, it's not, because they've got combustion engines. There was a long GFC argument about this. This is when I was out in San Francisco. This is like
that's like the golden age of dumb GFC arguments.
This is like 6 or 7 years ago. So like,
I wonder what was my position. Do you remember my position?
I don't remember. I think Charles is the one that primarily told me I was wrong, that it was steampunk, because there was...
Yeah, I don't think I was on the it's steampunk. I do kind of agree WoW is diesel punk. They have a lot of they have trains, they have cars, like the goblins are all cars. They have tanks, which are presumably using a combustion engine.
I mean, trains are steampunk. Trains are pretty classic steampunk because they're like steam engines, right? Like, it depends on how.
Yeah, I think of the really what I'm getting at is the Iron Horde does not strike me as a steam entity. That is a diesel entity, right?
Yes, absolutely.
You literally collect diesel on the fucking map. I wonder what my position was at the time.
This also might have been before the Iron Horde, if I'm thinking about
That's true. It might have been Warlords of Draenor was at 2014. You were in San Francisco. Yeah, that would have been during the Mists of Pandaria days.
I do remember arguing though that like one of the resources in Warcraft 1, I think, was oil.
Warcraft 2, yeah, there was oil platforms, and
because this might have been around the time that fucking what's his name? The guy, A History of Warcraft. Khadgar is a sheet wizard. Like he mentions oil in that video because he starts with the Warcraft games. But yes. All right, I've drawn this out too much.
Okay.
If you want to email us about what you think about steampunk or diesel punk, you can email us too at the address. But with that, I'm going to say until next time, your listeners.
Until next time, loyal listeners.